In this difficult season of suffering and loss, where fear and restriction surround, we truly rejoice, Brunonians all, to arrive at this moment of celebration with these dear students who complete the requirements for their first degree. These stars of Brown's rising generation are a blessing, newly illumined by the light of research, friendship, and even wisdom. These bright lives entrusted to us for a season are about to set forth. They seek to discharge the offices of life with usefulness and reputation, with compassion and nuanced thought. We are truly grateful for their season on College Hill, this great university's blessing of faculty, resources, and benefactors who have most especially been the families and guardians of these students are our blessing, to be sure. Bless us all in this moment of completion and beginning, as hope dawns, but still there is much to endure. May the bright cord of friendship be strong to hold us close as a family of Brown, that we may, ever true, seek what is good, know what is excellent, love what is worthy, and live life's blessings in peace. Amen.
Good afternoon. As Dean of the College and a Brown alumnus, it is my pleasure to welcome you, the class of 2020.5. For over 30 years, the college has convened a Midyear Completion Ceremony to celebrate the achievements of students like you. Students who are fortunate enough to be the members of not one, but two classes. Students who have charted their own path through Brown. Whether you arrived as a mid-year transfer, took advantage of a leave away from campus, or pursued opportunities to continue your studies a bit longer, you will soon be completing your time with us. This ceremony is not meant to replace graduation. Many of you already walked in through the Van Wickle gates, and you are all welcome to walk out through those gates when your degrees will be officially conferred this May, and every May thereafter as part of commencement and reunion weekend, that larger celebration of the Brown community. Today, though, is a moment just for you and your loved ones, your family and friends, your teachers and classmates. Class of 2020.5, please join me in thanking those who have gathered around the world to celebrate you and to celebrate with you. Today is an auspicious day, the last day of the first week of the last month of the year. A fitting time to celebrate transitions. Occasions like today often make me think about time and order and purpose, how time helps set the stage for certain events. Growing up, I remember being confused about New Year's. I'm an immigrant. I was born in Iran, but moved to the United States as a small child. And in America, New Year's seemed so certain and clear. The new year was marked by the stroke of midnight on January 1st. You stayed up late to watch TV, the ball dropped, and the year was new. But in the Iranian calendar, New Year's, or Nowruz as it's called, literally the new day, is complicated. It actually happens on a different day, different hour, minute, and second each year. And its time depends on your location. Last year, it occurred 10 minutes before midnight on March 19th. This year, it'll occur at 4:15 p.m. on March 21st. As a little kid, it seemed unpredictable. It was only later, actually when I came to Brown, that I learned Nowruz was set by a precise cosmic moment. The moment of spring equinox, when the sun passes through the plane of the equator and when night and day are equal. And it was through the friendships made at Brown that I learned years are defined not by clocks, but by shared traditions. I'm lucky enough to have added many yearly traditions to my life, from January 1st and Nowruz to Chinese New Year and Rosh Hashanah, from convocation and commencement to this mid-year completion ceremony. What this has taught me is that not only is life more interesting and more complete with many calendars, but also that we are more complete too, as individuals and as a community. In some communities, rules and structure define a precise order. A comes before B, B comes before C, and so on. In other communities, though, order is defined by choice, by purpose, and by shared values. As you know well, the Brown undergraduate experience is the latter. Our open curriculum is defined by choice and purpose. Our philosophy of education says that the purpose of undergraduate education at Brown is the intellectual and personal growth of the individual student. That students, ultimately responsible for their own development, must be active participants in framing their own education, and that everything else, the structure, rules, and regulations of the university, should follow from this purpose. Indeed, the faculty rules explicitly require us to provide exceptional students like you with, quote, the maximum opportunity to formulate and achieve your own educational objectives, and on your own time. What some of you know is that these words in the faculty rules came from students. In fact, it was 100 students, much like yourselves today, who helped break the mold at Brown more than 50 years ago. They wrote that undergraduate education should create, quote, an environment in which students are encouraged to formulate and consider the problems which are most basic to them, what their lives are about, why they seek the goals they do, where they want to go, and what they want to do. As Point Fivers, I know that you understand and appreciate these words even more than most Brown students. And that is why we are convened here today. To celebrate your education and the important role you have played in the education of your classmates and this university. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, the 19th president of Brown University, Christina H. Paxson.
Thank you, Dean Zia, and welcome everybody. I'm very happy to be here with you as we recognize and celebrate our mid-year graduates, the great Brown University class of 20.5. Congratulations, you are spectacular. Now at Brown, we love our traditions, and even the mid-year completion ceremony, which is a relatively new tradition at Brown, usually looks much the same from one year to the next. So normally, if this were a normal year, you would be seated right now in the large auditorium in Solomon Hall. Dean Zia and I, along with the Reverend Janet Cooper Nelson and the student speakers, would be seated on the stage, and your family and friends would be packed into the auditorium with every seat filled, even up into the balcony. After the speeches, you'd be called up to the stage one by one to be recognized. Dean Zia would request that your families and friends hold their applause until all of the students have been called up. And predictably, they would completely ignore him, instead clapping and cheering for each and every student. Now, many of our traditions have gone by the wayside this year, but that in no way diminishes the magnitude of your accomplishments. Everyone on this Zoom call is virtually clapping and cheering you on right now. In fact, the very notion that you're here today, despite everything you've contended with this year, speaks volumes to your character, your ambition, and your perseverance. The pandemic has necessitated that we change nearly every aspect of the way we live our lives, but it doesn't change who we are, and it doesn't change what we can accomplish as a Brown University community. We are a community built on the values of collaboration, innovation, and inclusion. And we're also a community that seeks to better understand the world in which we live and to use that knowledge to serve others and effect meaningful change. When I think about the work members of this community have done amidst the pandemic, or perhaps even because of it, our values and mission are as clearly displayed as they have ever been. So let me share 3 quick examples. Early in the pandemic, one Brown student encountered a number of news stories about farmers throwing food away that they would normally sell to restaurants, which were now shut down. Meanwhile, the needs at food pantries and shelters were growing exponentially as more and more people were out of work. So this student recruited more students, and with their joint knowledge, they started the FarmLink project. In a matter of weeks, they were arranging shipments from farms to food banks all across the country. And what started with one Brown student recognizing a problem has turned into an incredible project that's delivered more than 15 million pounds of food to 39 states across the country, with the help of more than 100 students from colleges and universities also across the country. In another case, this past summer, 2 Brown student researchers working with the Swearer Center sought to help middle schoolers at a boarding school in a rural province of China explore self-expression. These young people live in a region where there's an incredible need for migratory labor. And as a result, many only see their parents once a year. This is hard. Many have difficulty expressing emotions as a result. So the Brown students created a pilot program that teaches students how to use photography to express their emotions. Over many weeks this summer, and with the help of the video conferencing tools that we all know far too well by now, these Brown students introduced Chinese middle schoolers to photography as a means to capture emotion. Through images, they explored how they felt about challenges like not seeing their parents and the pressures of school. Now, notably, these wildly creative Brown students found a way to conduct this research during a pandemic with the help of technology. This is the year of the pandemic, but it's also been a year of incredible consequence in the government of our country. With the pandemic presenting potential obstacles to voter turnout, Brown students again came together to mobilize student voters. This new student-led organization called Brown Votes provided resources and support to ensure that all students could cast their ballots. With creative tools like voting challenges that harness the power of peer interactions, Brown students directly contributed to increased civic engagement on campus. Now, I share these examples to demonstrate the incredible drive and determination of our community and to show that it's not been hampered by the circumstances of this year. In fact, the circumstances have inspired action. As soon-to-be Brown alumni, you're part of an extraordinary legacy of active, empowered Brown students. So as you leave Brown, I encourage you to take this notion that you can and should drive positive change. Take that notion to heart. This means being engaged in every way possible. Build community, be problem solvers, elevate the public good, listen, find common ground, and remember to vote in every election cycle going forward. All of this helps us model the practice of being part of something larger than ourselves. And it's precisely what the world needs now as our country and many other countries around the world become more and more divided. We have to see past the division if we're to confront the serious issues before us. Racial inequality, climate change, economic inequality, just to name a few. Now, I know Brown students, and I am confident that you will rise to this challenge. As you leave Brown and segue into a changing world that needs you more than ever, you have all of the skills you need to navigate the challenges ahead. You leave as thinkers, adapters, creators, innovators. You leave as global citizens with a strong sense of responsibility to make life better in our country and our world. So take with you the knowledge that I could not be prouder of you for completing your degrees on your own terms in the most challenging of times. And I wish you all lives of purpose, fulfillment, and joy. And at some point, hopefully not before too long, I will see you in person, having the opportunity to participate in the great Brown tradition of marching out through the Van Winkle gates and having faculty and generations of alumni applaud and cheer you on. Congratulations and good luck, 20.5ers.
Thank you, President Paxson. As advocated by students 50 years ago, a central aspect in our open curriculum is the relationship of the student with faculty, staff, and fellow students, and with the material they approach together. It has been university tradition since the first class, more than 250 years ago, to hear from students completing their degrees. Today, we will hear from 2 of your classmates. It is my pleasure to introduce our first student speaker, Josie Benson. Josie is a geological sciences concentrator from Bowling Green, Ohio. An avid climber, hiker, and writer, Josie now considers herself a true Rhode Islander. She's been a licensed emergency medical technician in Rhode Island since 2015. In her time at Brown, Josie has volunteered with Brown EMS and played on the club soccer team. Josie plans to attend graduate school next fall and hopes to work on projects focusing at the intersection of the environment and human health. She's a proud 2020 December completer. Please join me in welcoming Josie.
Who here planned on being a .5er? I didn't. I showed up to my first advising meeting 20 minutes early with a 4-year semester by semester class list for a dual concentration. My advisor laughed and asked when I was sending out invitations for my graduation party. I was slightly insulted. I was certain I knew what I wanted from my time at Brown. I had applied early decision, after all. Thankfully, I've strayed from the rigid course list 17-year-old me prepared in my mom's kitchen. I suspect most of us have detoured off of our original paths. The beauty of Brown is in its flexibility. I still did things my way, but my idea of my way changed as I did. Perhaps all of us came to Brown a little idealistic. The challenge is preserving that idealism while introducing a little bit of realism. I tell people sometimes that at Brown, there's no real rules, only guidelines. In other words, a heavy hand is not a helping hand. Everywhere at Brown, I've found helping hands. They were in my first year unit and in the geology department. Help came from professors, from my advisor, from the administration, from classmates I knew well, and from classmates I didn't know at all. And honestly, I don't know most of you, but right now, you're helping me by looking at the screen and listening. I don't know how most of you got here, whether you're graduating a semester early, took time off to travel, work, or convalesce, or perhaps are a RU student, returning after a long hiatus. I can tell you how I got here, though. I got here because, at first, I thought I could conquer college. Then, I felt like college had conquered me. But I kept putting out my hand, and people kept grabbing it. I realized that, at some point, I wasn't just being helped up. I had started helping other people up as well. Through working Brown Emergency Medical Services, I've been invited into some hard moments, seen people at their most vulnerable. That vulnerability makes me love each of them even more. The poet Khalil Gibran wrote, "Your joy is your sorrow unmasked." All the tough times, including the time I cried in the Sili bathroom after receiving my first C, make this celebration so much more joyful. Brown, through the years, has been a dream, an ideal, and a playground. On this campus, I've made countless friends, felt connected, been loved. I've also acutely felt the class divide and learned about my own power and privilege. These are things I know I must reckon with for the rest of my life. I questioned my place here on College Hill. During my junior year, I began working as an EMT in Fall River and New Bedford, cities that have been particularly hard hit by the opioid epidemic. I saw the full ramifications of economic disparity. I felt a jarring disconnect between my job and my school. I began to feel like I made more of a difference out there than in here. I worked one commencement as an EMT, wearing long pants and work boots. It was blistering hot, and everyone's grandma kept fainting. There are, after all, some advantages to virtual commencements. I wavered on whether I would attend my own commencement. Sitting in the sun in a cap and gown didn't seem like fun. And what if the speakers were boring? I never thought I'd be asked to speak. Never. During my senior year, I took a leave from Brown that ended up lasting 2.5 years. I lived nearby and worked in the community. I worked in EMS, then I tended bar, then I worked in EMS again. When coworkers found out I went to Brown, common reaction was bemusement. Why are you here? Or, I guess you're pretty smart. I didn't know how to answer either of those questions, but for the latter, I started replying, I can still do dumb things. And the reality is, I have done a lot of dumb things. I have fallen down a lot. But Brown has always given me a hand getting up and said, do better. We know you can be better. I've learned here that I can do dumb things, but I can also do kind things, and considerate things, and tough things. I am not defined by the dumb things. A year ago, I was submitting my application to return to studies. I didn't know what was worse, the idea of not getting back into school, or the idea of actually getting back into school and having to navigate the transition. I didn't know where I would fit. Most of my friends had graduated and moved on. My first few days back on campus, I flitted from building to building. I read in fonts for half an hour, then tried the sci-li. I was trying to feel a part of instead of apart from. As a geology concentrator, I wound up hanging out in the geology department. I introduced myself to everyone who entered the shared study spaces. I started to feel like a student again. In my time away from Brown, I thought that if I had been at another school, I might have been passed along instead of failing classes. I might have graduated on time. I wondered if I should have gone somewhere else. I'm so glad I didn't. Brown worked with me. I had 1 semester's worth of classes remaining. I could have showed up, churned out the credits, and moved on. But I wouldn't have felt like a student again. I wouldn't have reintroduced myself to professors and to peers. So, instead, I worked with the college and with professors to spread out my 9th semester, to maximize the remainder of my time at Brown. Ultimately, we leave here with a transcript and a diploma. But our Brown education is composed of so much more than just classes and grades. When I talk about Brown's resources, our commitment to being loan-free, our grading policies, our ethos, I'm often met with disbelief. Higher education in the U.S. is increasingly profit-focused. It hurts the students who are in the most need. It discards students who stumble, like me. Brown isn't a perfect institution, but we as students constantly ask of Brown what Brown asks of us. Do better. We know you can be better. I'm so grateful to the students who went before me, asking Brown to be better. Their determination to improve the school around issues of equity, mental health, leave-taking, and substance use has shaped my Brown experience. So if you have ever asked the school to step up, thank you. And if you have used those resources, I'm grateful to you too. I'm reminded here of Sidney Frank. All of you know the building named after him, and some of you may know his story, but I'll outline it briefly. Sidney Frank came to Brown as an undergraduate in 1938, but left after 1 year because he couldn't afford tuition. After he made his fortune, he gave over $100 million to Brown so that students would never have to leave because they couldn't pay. He told Brown to do better. My financial aid came from the Sidney Frank Scholarship. I'm reminded today that my success is a direct result of all those who walked through the Van Wickle gates before me. Brown, to me, is no longer a dream or an ideal. It's better. It's our alma mater. We're graduating into a time of extreme uncertainty. I don't know what city or state I'll be in 6 months. It's a sharp contrast to 8 years ago when I received my acceptance to Brown. Then, I thought I had it all figured out. Today, I know I don't. But I'm okay with it, and thankfully my parents are too. Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. In a recent New Yorker article, staff writer Christine Smallwood wrote that one way to cope with uncertainty is to demand certainty. Another is to learn to dwell in uncertainty, to find solace and even beauty in what is and must be unknown. I wrote that on a note card and have it pinned on my wall. Because if we must stare into the unknown, and even on days like today, we might as well find the beauty in it. And today is a beautiful day. Hopefully, I'll see you all months from now when we walk through the gates. Until then, I know we will keep doing what we've been doing, sticking out our hands, asking for help, and helping people and institutions do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Josie. Next, it is my pleasure to introduce Chuck Isgar. Chuck is a gregarious student who I've known since he first transferred to Brown. Chuck is also already a serial entrepreneur. For instance, he is the co-founder and CEO of Intern from Home, an online recruiting platform focused on virtual work opportunities, which has been featured in both regional and national press. At Brown, Chuck serves as the co-president of the Brown Entrepreneurship Program. As the founder and head of the Roundtable discussion series at Brown, Chuck has hosted conversations with over a dozen distinguished alumni. He is a concentrator in business entrepreneurship and organization and has served as captain of the varsity golf team. Chuck's passion is connecting with people, which he loves doing at home with his 3 sisters, supporting student founders at Brown, or putting together conversations to engage students and alumni. Please join me in welcoming Chuck.
Look around. Who's next to you? Who's watching this ceremony with you virtually? I'm Chuck Isgar, and it's an honor to be here with you. Today, I invite you to focus on the importance of looking around. Fellow Point Fivers, can you think of an item that symbolizes an aspect of your experience at Brown? Parents, can you think of something you sent with your child to their dorm room, or perhaps something your child sent you from Brown? I'm thinking about my snow boots. For those of us, like me, who don't come from cold weather, Providence winters are, shall we say, a new experience. Flash back with me to a couple of months before I transferred to Brown. I text my soon-to-be teammate Sasha, and I ask him if there's any winter gear he recommends. Sasha had been appointed by the coach of Brown's golf team, Coach Hughes, to welcome me to the golf team family and help me transition to Brown. So Sasha very enthusiastically recommends a pair of snow boots. He sends me a link to them and all. I'm thinking to myself, why is this guy so kind? When I experienced a snowstorm for the first time in Providence that winter, I was excited to break out my new boots. What I didn't expect, however, was to find Sasha wearing the exact same boots. Our relationship goes far beyond having matching boots. Sasha was there for me along every step of the way to my start at Brown. He was continually looking out for me, and he still does to this day. For me, my snow boots represent that the Brown community looks out for one another. More broadly, those rubber-soled shoes signify the deep impact that we can have on people when we bring them under our wing. What does your special symbol from Brown mean to you? For many of my fellow transfers and .5ers, I know that one of the reasons we're here together today is because we wanted to find a community that felt like family. Shortly after beginning at Brown, I found a community in Brown's entrepreneurship program. A little over a year ago, it was the time to determine who would become the club's new co-presidents to lead our 75 members in the next year. I wasn't planning on applying for the role, but someone else had another idea. The week before applications were due, an EP member named Grace stops me at the club's weekly meeting and point blank asks me if I'm running for co-president. I had never said a word before to Grace. I respond and tell her that I'd love to, but I just don't think I have the time. She responds back to me, encouraging me to consider applying. That was our entire conversation. This exchange convinced me to apply. I was fortunate to be chosen to be co-president, along with Grace. Little did we know that we would lead a club through a pandemic into a fully virtual format, but we've turned this situation into an opportunity. .5ers, who's been your Sasha and Grace? Who's that person that made you feel like Brown was a home away from home? Did you make a new friend after they invited you for lunch in the Ratty? Parents, that's the dining hall with the omelet station. I encourage you to take a moment today and give those special people a call. Tell them what they mean to you. Ultimately, the best thank you is to pay it forward. We all have the power to look around for others. We can change the lives of others, and it costs us nothing. Let's not delay when we see this opportunity. This past March, Brown had announced that classes would be transitioning to a virtual format for the remainder of the semester due to the coronavirus. So I'm having dinner in one of Brown's dining halls called the V-Dub. Parents, that's the one known for its taco bowls. At dinner, I start to do some looking around. Through conversations, it became clear that people were concerned about how to create meaning in their upcoming, heavily virtual lives. But we Brown students can't just watch when we see those around us worried. I emailed one of my closest mentors, Professor Hazeltine. I told him about this idea I had to help with the impending situation for students. I wanted to build an online recruiting platform that would connect students and companies for virtual internships. Professor Hazeltine's response was simple, and a reminder of the same principle he has impressed in me and many other students over the years. Have a bias for taking action. Feeling inspired, I called two of my best friends, Megan and David, and I asked them to be my co-founders. Thankfully, they said yes. We all wanted to put into practice what we had learned over our time at Brown. Look out for others. Within 48 hours, Megan, David, and I launched our platform, and we called it Intern from Home. Over the next several weeks, while continuing our classes virtually, we grew our free platform as fast as we possibly could. Flash forward to today. Students at over 300 college campuses are using our free platform to find internships at companies across the country. Our team, all Brown students or recent graduates, is now 8 people instead of the original 3. We are driven by being able to help others during this challenging time. I want us to all think, How can we do something bigger than ourselves? How can our work going forward not just help our bosses and clients, but also advance our society? This is how Brown has taught us to think. Remember, our ideas, our innovations, and our unique perspectives are wanted. We all carry with us a unique lens that has been developed throughout our time at Brown. Let's bring it with us on our next journey. As I begin to turn the page on my experience as a student at Brown, there are many thank yous in store. To my dad and mom, thank you for your endless support on this winding journey. To my 3 sisters, thank you for putting up with my countless texts in our family group chat and photos and updates about my time at Brown. As my 13-year-old sisters like to joke around, it's all about Brown, Brown, Brown. But when you find that place you love, you just can't stop talking about it. And to all the deans, professors, coaches, mentors, teammates, co-founders, friends, family, and supporters who have been here for me throughout my time at Brown, I thank each of you for playing an important role in making my time at Brown as special as it has been. Fellow Point Fivers, I leave you with one final message. The pandemic may have made the end to our time at Brown different than what we expected. But as Professor Cohen has taught some of us, cycles will come and go. However, it is in the most challenging times, like now, that we need to look around. Doing so will remind us of what we have, and most importantly, it will encourage us to be there for others. Amongst all the things Brown has taught us, I hope one principle will be a guiding light for all of us going forward. Regardless of what we do or where we go, the most fulfilling life is one where we're looking out for those around us. Point Fivers, congratulations! We've earned this, and so have our families.
Thank you, Chuck. Now, I would like to welcome Wendy Sheridan to help with the highlight of today's festivities. In a few moments, Wendy will present to you the students who will be completing their degrees this month. Friends and families, please join me in congratulating the class of 2020.5.
Mariam Abu Talib, Swetha Aligar, Benjamin Aildort, Stephanie Alvarado, Emmett Askira, Phoebe Ayers, Seth Barshay, Shira Bedford, Josephine Benson, Sarah Berman, Jalen Blandberg, Claire Boyle, Samantha Corias, Jackson Chaikin, Akiva Chalef, Jake Channon, Ashley Chen, Sabrina Chen, Priya Chauhan, Christian Cooper, Aidan Cron, Jack DiCintio, Joel Dong, Nicholas Isley, Patrick Elizalde, Eleanor Ing, Benny Eskenazi Eliezer, Yi Chao Feng, Carmen Farron, James Flynn, May Fullerton, Kylie Fustini, Vanessa Garcia, Silas Gittin, Alejandra Gonzalez, Alexander Greenberg, Benjamin Gross, William Hackett, Alexandra Hainsworth, Jennifer He, Jordan Heinlein, Sophia Hernandez, Riley Howe, Peihan Huo, Charles Isgar, McLean Jackson Hartford, Jessica Jiang, Joy Jung, Nicholas Kane, Ben Kelly, William Kennedy, Lauren Kim, Zachary Kliegler, Eric Komatsu, Jake Maeda Cutchins, Bilal Lafta, Matthew Latanzi, Michael Leclerc, Rebecca Lee, Joseph Leonard, Florence Lee, Justin Lau, Matthew Littman, Junaid Malik, Courtney Mankowski, Jake Martin, Emma McMillan, Brittany Montgomery, Ellie Morimoto, Matla Natasha Motalesi, Benjamin Myers, Ronan Newman-Hammond, Natalie Wynn, Alexander Nibley, Liam O'Brien, Isabel Olive, Charlotte Oster, Nico Velapage, Cassidy Paradis, Anna Pasnow, Sean Pender, Gretchen Peterson, Zoe Phillips, Olivia Pritt, Amy Pooh, Mia Perdome, Shiyu Ren, Mina Ree, Andrew